All right, welcome to What's in the Box episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna,
And I'm Eric.
and today we are going to be discussing the movie Rosemary's Baby. Um, so, what do you think, Eric?
Well, I think our entire discussion about the book, where we said that it was kind of written like a screenplay,
Mm,
is played out here because it's exactly what they filmed. I mean, they
yeah,
could have, I mean, they didn't do it, they didn't deviate one bit. Now, I did read a thing saying that this was Pulowski's first time ever doing a movie that was written by somebody else, based on somebody else's writings. And the note I saw said that he didn't realize that he could make changes. Like he thought that this is the source material. We need to keep it to the source material. He didn't realize that could be seen as a suggestion, and he could do his own thing because he follows the book 100%.
yeah, pretty much. I just watched it last night, so it would be fresh in my mind, and I was really impressed that it was by the book. There were some things missing that were
Right
in the
now,
book.
he actually, I saw another thing. He filmed 4 hours. When he was done and he put it together, it was a 4 hour film.
Wow.
And he let the editor go in and cut out what he thought needed to be removed. And I think if we would have got that 4 hour film, we would have gotten the things that are missing
Yeah.
because we didn't have the sister phone call.
The
Um,
cabin. She didn't go to the
yeah,
cabin.
she didn't leave, and there were a couple quick things. I almost thought they were going to skip the party, but they
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
The way it was, because it was kind of there was no real designation of time throughout this film, I thought, because didn't it feel like she went from introduction to birth of the baby, and it didn't feel like we got any sense of the journey of the pregnancy, of the house, of moving into the apartment. It didn't feel like there was anything to tell us that changing of seasons. I know we got the one scene where they gave us the New Year's, the little
Yeah.
countdown. Um, so that's the only time they really gave us a peek into, uh, you know, time
Well, then at
moving at
the
all.
yeah, well, at the end where she was getting ready to have the baby, they kept saying it was like 95 outside.
Yeah, so they gave us the idea that it was
Summer,
hotter,
yeah.
but we see no evidence of it. In fact, we don't see evidence of her being pregnant till after the point where she says the pain is gone away.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I think in the book, aren't we like 7 months into it?
Yeah.
And so that right there is she doesn't start showing until literally that scene where she's trying to get to the doctor to escape.
Right.
um,
Yeah.
so you don't even have that to give us a designation of her pregnancy, which I understand. I mean, that's the whole point. She's got you know the antichrist in her stomach, and he's eating her from inside out, I guess, until
Yeah.
she gets to that point. um, Now I did
Yeah.
see another note saying that what is it, Ura 11, Ira
I
11,
Ira 11, yeah.
he said this was the most faithful um, adaptation he's ever seen in Hollywood. So, I mean, I guess he was very happy that they kept to the book and didn't change anything. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, we also missed a lot of missed those scenes where she was doubting Guy
yeah.
and then all of a sudden was like, "Oh, okay, never mind. He's fine."
Well,
You know?
it was a movie, so of course you're not going to have as much internal dialogue.
Yeah.
And I thought and so we lost that, but I didn't feel like he did a great job of, giving us that idea that without the cabin, especially, you just don't have that journey that she goes on in her head where she's going from totally unbelieving something to accepting it, to embracing it,
Yeah.
which she did a couple times to get to the point where she could embrace the child when she comes to it in the book. Um, I don't know. What did you think of her performance?
I thought her performance was really great. I think going from looking healthy and then after she's pregnant, I mean, her whole demeanor changed. And I'm sure she probably like lost a few pounds to get that, or maybe it was just makeup.
I think it was just makeup. I'm wondering if they even, how method were they back then? I'm sure
Yeah.
some of them were, but she was coming off of just TV and nothing big at the moment or at that time period.
Right.
I do know she was married to Frank Sinatra, and he wanted her not to take the role. Somebody told her that if she took the role, she'd win the Oscar, and so she decided to do it. And Frank Sinatra, had her serve divorce papers during the filming.
Oh wow.
So I think that maybe that contributes to some of her, because she was pretty angsty during there were scenes where she did that. But
Yeah.
I didn't think that she felt like she was from Omaha at
No.
any point.
No.
I thought for a second they were going to change it. When we start the movie and she's talking to Guy, she doesn't pronounce was it basil? She
Yeah.
says basil,
Yeah.
which is not going to be an American pronunciation. So I thought, oh well, maybe she's going to be sophisticated person from overseas, maybe, or maybe they're going to make her a New Yorker. I was trying to figure out what they were going to do with her, but then they didn't change any other storylines. I just thought that. So from that point on, I was already irritated
Yeah.
that they
I'm
didn't
just
catch
gonna
that.
I think we should just go ahead and get into our character. Where's my Rosemary? There we go. So
So I
yeah,
get so when I did this, I did the two. So we had pre-pregnancy. Now you can't see what I'm pointing. I'm pointing at it like everybody can see what I'm
yeah.
doing. Pre-pregnancy on the left, and then after she does the haircut thing, which they did in the book, do you think that was because she kept just saying, I got it a Vidal Sassoon cut?
Yeah.
Did that mean short haircut, or does that just mean she went to the place? Because it seemed like in the book, I thought it just meant she went to the place, but she kept saying it in the movie like it was the hairstyle.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of took it as Vidal Sassoon as the place. Um, but I don't because I don't and now I'm not like any kind of fashion or hair person. Like I don't know if Vidal Sassoon was actually meant to be a reference to a short haircut, but I think she just meant it as the place. At least that's how I took it.
I wasn't sure. I just didn't. As like you said, I just had no clue what was going on at
Yeah.
that point.
But I
I
was really impressed. I could get like when she was going through the pain,
mm,
um, I could really see the like distress in her face, as the character. And I even think like when I was looking at her as when she was at the worst of the pain, it was almost like her teeth had changed. Like I don't know if it was just the screen quality or whatever, but it looked like her teeth had like really gotten yellow um uh when she was looking her sickest there. Um but yeah, I think she did a great job. I really enjoyed her performance.
well, and that's even more shocking than when you find out she wasn't even nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
Um, After being promised that this is an Oscar, you know, winning role. She wasn't even nominated. I don't know. I found, it was fine. It had that feeling of those 60s movies
Yeah.
that
And I
really
gotta
you can kind of go either way. It just depends on your mood of the day, I think.
yeah.
Um,
And I gotta say, I can't remember how it was in the book, but they kept referring to it as a spice garden instead of
yeah,
an herb garden. They did it
and yeah,
twice. And
yeah,
I was like, no.
yeah, and it's not a big deal. Just like mispronouncing the other thing, it's not a big deal, but it stood out,
Yeah.
especially because we just read the stupid thing. We just read it. The
Yep.
words are fresh in our heads,
Yep.
and I'm like, I was just as I was watching the movie, I thought, man, I would have been ticked off if I had read the book and went to see the movie and it was word for word back in the day. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I was kind of put off by the whole experience, but yeah, I thought she was decent. I didn't think
Yeah.
there was any. It made me wonder because she's married to Frank Sinatra. Is she? I know her parents are big into Hollywood, but I was trying to figure out. I mean, is this one of those? She's not somebody I follow very much, so I don't know her. The only thing I could think of, I always think of her with The Last Unicorn, and that's about it. So,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, I thought she did a decent job. You know, I thought as I watched the movie, I wasn't, you know, enjoying the performance as much. But when she got to the point where she got back to the doctor, was it Dr. Hill?
Hill. Yeah.
When she went back to Dr. Hill, I thought she was really, really good there. I mean, I thought she really put on a great performance. The
Yeah.
more so, she was more believable in that scene than the scene was written in the book. Because I
Hmm.
remember we discussed how, she sounds like a crazy person in the book. She sounded like a crazy person in the scene too. And you could tell, that Dr. Hill wasn't kind of buying into it as much, but her performance was heartfelt, I
Yeah.
guess, is what I'm trying to say. So it was easier to believe that she believed that they were trying to take her baby in the movie than in the book.
Yeah. Oop, I went too fast. Guy.
Yeah,
Okay,
guy.
so first I got to point out his last name is almost exactly the same as the characters in the book, the Cassavetes.
Yeah, that
I
is
know it's
weird.
Cassavetes, but it just struck me as ironic that his name was so close to those characters' last names.
I don't really know much about the actor either, so I didn't have a strong feel either way.
Yeah.
But he's a dirtbag in the book, and he's a darn good dirtbag in the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
And I thought he did a good job. And some of the notes I read was that he butted heads with Polanski a lot, um, because he likes to be improv and off the cuff, and Pulowski has specific notes, and we're gonna direct, and he's like one of those directors that controls every aspect of the filming, and he was driving him crazy. So to the point where they say terrible things about each other, 20, 30 years
Oh
later.
wow. Wow. So I don't know. I don't know what happened, but that one scene in the beginning when they first moved into the apartment, they were just brought a lamp and some food, like
Yeah,
before they fully moved in. What the hell was that sex scene? That was the most unsexiest sex scene I have
yeah,
ever seen. It was like he was laying on his back doing the bicycle, trying to get his pants off.
yeah. No, and that's one of the problem with the films from the 60s, and that's part of the reason why I think people loved Polanski in the beginning, was that they were all those movies, they try and film everything to be hyper realistic, but we don't need to see the 7 hour taking your pants off thing,
Right.
we could get from point A to point B, but they were moving, at least this is what I was thinking, they're moving away from those big Hollywood productions into the more grittier indie director kind of stuff. And Polanski, up to this point, if I'm, it was basically an indie European style director, and so that's the flavor he brings. But it's unnecessary, especially now because we've seen so many movies. We've seen this 1,000 times. I'm sure when it came out, it was
Yeah.
like, this is like amazing work. But to us, we're like, get on with it. What are we
Yeah.
doing? Yeah, it was so, I mean, all of it was. She was like eating a sandwich, and then all of a sudden she's just like, let's have sex. And
Yeah.
and then he's like rolling around on the floor, like you said, bicycle kicking his pants off. And it's
I
just
know. I'm
like,
like, I was like,
yeah, I
what?
was like,
And
this is odd. This is
it was
strange.
very
I,
awkward. I'm
I
like,
thought it was gonna go to some weird something direction. Like maybe they're gonna be interrupted. Something else was
yeah,
gonna, the way he filmed it, it almost felt like it was supposed to be funny. But I also think that was his style. Like
yeah,
that's a common thing you'd find in a Pulaski film. Um,
yeah.
he wasn't the first choice either. I read that um, Burt Reynolds auditioned for it, and Robert Redford was who they wanted to get.
mm,
But the studio
yeah,
did something stupid and pissed Robert Redford off, and he said no. I would have been curious to see how Robert Redford played the part because he's such a likable guy.
yeah.
It would have been weird to see him in this thing, but
It was
he
kind of
might have.
like necrophilia.
yeah, and unlike the book, she calls it rape.
Yeah.
He says, I was raped. I dreamt I was raped. And now I'm finding out you're the person that did it. In the book, she just said I had a weird dream. I don't remember her saying the word rape. It never
No.
stood out. It stands out when he's talking about how he did that. And again, just like we discussed last week, he could have easily gotten around it by simply saying, don't you remember? You were there, you were awake, you initiated it, whatever he wanted to do to lie about it. But he makes the wrong choice from the beginning of the film to the end. He's the perfect the sucker for this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't care for him. I could not see Burt Reynolds
No, no, no.
playing
It
this
would have been a
character.
terrible. It would have been terrible in this cast
Yeah.
with Burt Reynolds. But I found it interesting that so many people thought this was going to be a big movie. That they
Yeah.
were all trying to get their selves into this thing. Now, the fact that Robert Redford was their first choice and would have done it if not for the studio lawsuit. Some lawsuit came up for some other reason. Um, where I guess they play mind games with each other, and so he backed out of doing it. Um, I did that. I made a note because at the end, I thought the audacity of this guy when he squats down next to her after she's found the baby, and he starts telling her about how he basically sold her out,
Yeah.
but they promise not to hurt you, and you haven't been hurt, is what he
Yeah.
says.
Exactly. You haven't been hurt really or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she spits in his face, which I think is fine. But I would have been a lot more satisfied if she would have either clawed his eyes out or smacked him. Because she
Yeah.
spits on him and he gets up and just walks off. No big deal.
Yeah.
I'm ready for a movie of her tormenting him because she can
Yeah.
turn everything against him. Now that they've got what they want, they have the child.
Yeah.
If the mother says, I want this guy taken care of. I'd love to watch a movie where they just basically torment Guy the entire time
Yeah.
because he
And
is.
he's such a coward because like not only in the book but in the movie I loved how they played that up where when she comes into the room to see the baby, he's like standing in that doorway and he's like, kind of like got his head down and
Yeah,
he's
they
got
did
his
a lot
back.
of good,
Yeah.
good film with him in the background doing stuff.
Yeah.
What about when she says the pain stopped and he's accusing her of killing the baby with whatever she drank, and then
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh no, it's kicking, it's alive," and she takes his hand to put it on her stomach, and he immediately jumps back. I thought that was a really well done kill
Yeah.
by him. He's like, I don't need to have the Satan's child touching me through the skin.
Right.
I thought that was good, but yeah, I don't know who the actor is though. I was kind of would like to see him in something where he's not playing this character that is written for you to hate because we hated
Yeah.
him in the book. I hated him in this movie. He does he not feel like he's way too old though for the part? Like I don't know. I guess he seems like he's way too old to be the struggling actor who
Yeah.
marries Rosemary. I always pictured him much younger in my head. Uh,
Yeah. But I believe in the book they mentioned that he is a little older than her.
But he seems
Um,
like 10, 15 years older
yeah.
here. And I was thinking more like 24, 29. And maybe
Yeah.
I'm just misthinking. But when I look at this guy, I'm thinking this guy is late 30s.
Yeah.
And so but doesn't it also feel like everybody but Mia Farrow was cast to be way older?
Hmm.
So yeah, I get the same
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. Because we got Hutch, um, who of course was her like father figure. I wish they kind of would have
They,
developed that more
yeah,
in the movie.
they did not do enough with the character.
They were just
Um,
like, oh, here's this character Hutch, and um, I really wish that she would have like gone to the hospital because I know in the book she goes to the hospital and interacts with that Grace, the character Grace. So,
yeah, I know she has a phone call with the character. Or is
and
that
then yeah, then
Or is
there,
no, you know what? Is doesn't in the book is it when she talks the character she talks to is the daughter, right? She talks a little bit more because she talks to the daughter at the funeral too, but it's like 2 seconds.
yeah,
I thought that was
maybe it was
there
the
more
daughter
than
at the hospital, but I know in the book she goes to the hospital, and maybe at that point they could have been like, she could have said to that person, oh, he was like a father to me when I moved here from Omaha
Yeah,
and, kind of took me under his wing,
we
then you
got,
could would be able to get a sense of who this person was to them.
and then it also would increase the sadness of his passing, but also the insane reaction she has by forgetting he's in a coma. And
Yeah.
again, that lack of any kind of time scale throughout the film, it doesn't feel like, we were just introduced to this character, and then we find out that 3 months later he's dead after a coma, but we don't feel that time move at all, especially
Yeah.
because she's not really showing yet. So
Yeah.
they didn't give us a reason to care about this character other than to move the plot along to the point where he provides the book that shares the witch thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so yeah, definitely character way better in the book. Wish he would have had a little bit more to do in the movie, but I thought the guy they cast was fine. I guess he
Yeah.
must have been a pretty big. That's the problem is, and I read that Polanski didn't know any of these people. He wanted to have older actors that were, I don't want to say not serious, but you know well big, and people that it'd be basically like Tarantino today, where he goes and finds actors that we recognize but we don't really
Hmm.
remember. Um, that's kind of what Pulowski wanted to do, and he had sketches, and so he showed people sketches. This is what I think the character should look like, and then the people that do the casting would go and find the actors and actresses and match them to the sketches. And from what I understand, they basically knocked out of the park with all of them
Yeah.
compared. I wish we had access to the sketches. I
Yeah,
should
that
have
would
done
be
a
cool.
deeper dive and we could have seen it. That would have been really interesting. But I just
Yeah.
found out about the sketch thing today.
Yeah. So I did not picture Minnie as this type of a person.
Did you not read them in the book as a very sophisticated New York upper class kind of couple?
Yeah. Um,
And this is not what I saw.
I mean they kind of were, but I don't know. I pictured Minnie as like not as petite as
So did you kind of picture her like Louise? Because
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
See, I didn't really picture her, physically, I guess, but I thought of more like I don't want to say Cruella DeVille type, but kind of a Cruella DeVille type. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess I get now when you say petite because she is very short. I kind
Hmm.
of pictured her maybe a little taller, thinner,
Yeah.
kind of even like a Morticia
Yeah.
kind of a vibe. But I
And
definitely didn't hear the accent that they
yeah.
really pushed on with her. I mean,
Yeah.
she's
And
almost a caricature of a New York.
yeah. Yeah. Her voice was annoying. I was like, oh God, she's talking. Um,
And didn't that also get you because in the book they can hear sort of through the walls.
yeah.
They might as well not have had a wall. So then some of the scenes don't make sense. If you have Guy going back in the book, he goes to the apartment and talks to them more than once.
Yeah.
It feels like she would have heard every word he said
Yeah.
in the way
Exactly.
the movie was done.
And then the time when he went out for the ice cream, um,
They handled it so much better in the movie, I thought.
yeah, yeah. But they mentioned in the book that she could hear the buzzer
Yeah,
for the Castevets, but you don't hear that in the movie.
right. You don't hear the buzzer or any of the conversation when he does go over there because he goes over there twice,
Yeah.
to like tell him about the baby and all that stuff. Um, but what I thought was funny was in the book, it didn't make any sense, the ice cream thing, not really. And in the movie, he goes, "Hey, you're the pregnant one, yet I'm the one saying I need to get some ice cream. Do
Yeah.
you want some ice cream?" kind of thing. And I just the way he delivered it, just everything, it felt way more believable than it did in the book. In the book, it felt like it was just jammed in there so he could get out of the apartment.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. What's funny is she won from well, I did some research. She won an Oscar for this role.
Oh,
Best
Ruth
supporting
Gordon.
actress. Yep.
Wow.
Kicked her um,
Wow.
career off because she got best supporting actress,
Oh
which I
wow.
thought was amazing. And it makes me want to go look up to see who else was running. who else was up for this award? Because
Right.
they must have all, it must have all been like fence posts,
Yeah.
because I don't see this as a great supporting
No,
performance
no,
at all. It's
no.
more of a caricature. He was pretty cool though. I thought
He
he
was pretty
he
cool.
came off as creepy as all get out.
So I it was funny. I was just thinking that he came off to me like creepy old grandpa at the playground watching all the kids, kind of creepy, especially in the scene with Hutch where he's like, "Oh, we'll take good care of her," and
Yeah,
you
his
know,
delivery and his voice and just everything about him was just almost perfect.
yeah.
Um,
I could see him as a Satanist, totally. I can't see her as a Satanist. I just,
which, yeah, maybe that's part of the
yeah,
the great casting. But yeah, when you get to they have a couple different scenes where they have parties of large gathering, and especially at the end when you see the people there with the baby.
yeah.
It's all librarians, and
Hmm.
it's like you wouldn't think.
The
These
only
are all
difference
people that,
was the Asian guy.
yeah, he's funny. And then that almost, I want to say it was Arabic. The
Yeah,
guy that comes in at the end, he felt like he was Middle Eastern,
yeah, Middle
but
Eastern, and he didn't fit because he was wearing like a white or light gray suit.
yeah, and then the other problem, and he was very young.
Yeah,
And I was like, it almost felt like, and I don't know if that was the statement they were trying to make here, but that, so, they were really heavy on the God is dead part at the end, like they were in the book. And like we discussed before, all these books seem to kind of be going towards
yeah.
that thing. But then here we are, we're looking at a group of Satan's chosen that found the mother of the Antichrist, and they're all like 65 plus. It's
Hmm.
like, it didn't feel like it was a young man's game at all. And
Yeah.
so that to me stood out as kind of weird.
Yeah,
Because
because these people are like, yeah, he's going to take over the world, but you're you're almost dead. Like,
unless that maybe that's part of the allures, they think they're going to have eternal life on Earth
yeah,
as agents, but they're still trapped in the body of a 65, 70-year-old person. Um, I don't know, but it just felt weird because every story that we read and we discussed about Satanism in that time period in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it's always younger groups of people. It's always the youth that are, worshiping Satan. It's all, and here is your, a church group, it looked like,
yeah,
doing it. It felt odd. It felt like, well, if this is what you're worried about, we should stop worrying. Of course,
yeah,
nowadays they would more come across maybe not as Satanists, but they would be the New World Order or that kind of thing, and then you could actually see why they would be older as they try to contain their power or whatever. But
yeah,
I found it a little, yeah, it was just a weird gathering of people. But you're right, the one guy that really stood out is the guy that shows up at the end.
yeah.
Um,
I think maybe if they had a more of a mix of age groups, of ages in the group, it might have been a little bit more believable. Like they had the youngest people was the guy who came at the end, the Asian guy, and I think there was one other younger
guy,
guy. Yeah,
guy himself, and
and
then
Guy
Rosemary.
himself. Yeah,
And then I
yeah,
guess Rosemary would be considered because she's not part of the group, but then they do ask her to be the mother.
yeah.
Uh,
And they had, let's see, Terry. So she didn't have a very big role. But what I found interesting is in the book, it seemed like he focused a little bit more on the connection to the actress. You know how she says, "Oh, are you so and so?" And she's like, "Oh, I get that a lot, but I don't see it."
yeah,
They just mentioned that one time in the movie, and then it wasn't mentioned again.
yeah, but it did give us an idea of her having a little bit of an influence. Without her, with Terry, I think the only reason Terry's important in the movie is because she makes you believe that the Minnie and Roman aren't bad people.
Right.
Do you think that she killed herself, or do you think she was murdered because she didn't want to do it? Because
I
that's a
think
big
she,
discussion, I think.
yeah. I honestly think she was murdered, even though in the movie and the book it's not discussed really at all. You just think she committed suicide. Um, But I think it's once they realized that Rosemary was in the building, they decided to get rid of Terry because they didn't need her anymore.
I don't know if it's in the book or the movie, but at some point through the wall, Rosemary hears them say, "We should never have told her what the plan was,"
Yeah. And
making it
it could
seem
just,
like they gave Terry the option. Did you want to have the son of the devil?
yeah,
And that she immediately balked because nobody would want to do that. And so I think that's also why they might have dealt with Rosemary differently, like drugging her, just having it done that way, and just kind of forcing it upon her,
yeah.
so that
Yeah, it
they
was in
wouldn't
the
have
book.
the same reaction.
Yeah, it was in the book because I remember there's a part where Minnie was screaming, it could be any healthy woman. It didn't have to be, healthy young woman.
Right.
It doesn't have to be her. So yeah, for me, I believe that she was murdered and not committed suicide.
Either way, they had to keep her quiet, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, it doesn't make sense for her to kill herself as much as them killing her to keep her
Yeah.
quiet,
And that
which
performance by Minnie, oh, she was such a happy girl all the time. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, I I think it's funny because I read two different times. I think I wrote it down. Somebody wrote not entertainment today. One of the places said this was the top 10 scariest movie ever. And then somebody else had it down as a must-see horror movie. And I thought, God, this is not a horror movie at all.
Yeah, no, it's not. I think it's more of a psychological
And I did see
thriller.
somebody else post this is the scariest non-horror
Yeah,
movie ever. But I mean the fact that this is pushed on us over and over again about being this amazing horror movie, yeah, I don't yeah, it's not. I mean, and I do think they did a good thing by not showing us the baby. I think
really?
that would
Because I kind of would have liked to have seen the baby.
yeah, but I know what 1967,
Yeah,
68 Devil Baby was going to look like, and I'm glad they didn't show it. It's the
yeah.
same idea with Jaws, the less you see, the better. But not seeing the baby, but seeing her reaction, that was her best performance, of course,
Hmm.
is at the end, because she sells that really well.
Yeah, she
Um,
does.
in my mind, I did not enjoy her performance until the last 20 minutes of the film, and then she's lights out amazing. So I don't know. It just has this, they had this like, I don't want to say lazy feel to it. And I guess that might have been part of the thing. But we had that absence of time, so we didn't really see what was going on. But then everybody was kind of sleepwalking, it felt like, through the performances. And maybe I don't mean their performances, but through the life of the
Right.
thing going on. And maybe that was part of what he was going for. Kind of lull us to sleep and then bang us at the end really hard, right? Smack us right in the head. But yeah, I thought she was fine at the end too. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, obviously, 100% the book is 1,000 times better, but this movie is exactly the book. I mean, he wrote. I bet you if you went and looked, they didn't even change the dialogue except for maybe once or twice. The ice
Yeah.
cream thing's the only time I can think of that they changed the dialogue. Maybe. Um,
Yeah. I thought
if you hadn't read the book, I think you'd be blown away. At by the ending, I think you would have like a sixth sense. Um, Maybe you know what, and I say as I'm saying it, I'm thinking, nah, it's not even that good,
yeah.
because of the scene when they take her,
Hmm.
the way they filmed it. There are a couple times where in the book it really reads like she's dreaming it, so you
Yeah.
can kind of see the interwovenness, but in the film it really stands out
Yeah.
when they're saying no, she can't, she's not asleep, or she's not awake, she's asleep, she can't feel this, and it's Guy and Minnie talking.
Yeah.
It really stands out. And so at that point, Guy's a dirtbag, but you still have a little longer in the book before you're 100% assured that Guy's a dirtbag.
Yeah. 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 This is the poster. Um,
I think that's a really cool poster.
yeah, I think so too. I really like it, but it looks kind of like, I mean, I don't know if that's supposed to be the top of the building because at first look, it looks kind of like mountain.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um,
It doesn't really.
but then I kind of like maybe this is like the roof and there's like a chimney here and then this is another part of the building
Yeah, I don't know.
because the building was a big part of the story, because that's where Adrian Marcato was, burned or killed or whatever in the lobby or whatnot. Um, Roman's
Yeah,
father.
and later she said when she's reading the book, it says outside the thing, not in the lobby, because she mentions that.
Yeah.
So, but they didn't in the book. They really hammer the history of
Hmm.
the thing. And they, I mean, I know they have dinner with Hutch, and he mentions it. It just doesn't have the same effect.
Yeah.
Uh, we
No.
had, we knew it was more important because we just read the book. But I
Yeah.
have to tell you, I definitely think this is the most disappointing of all the ones that we've watched.
Yeah.
But it's also I want to say it's the first time I've seen it all the way through. So this wasn't like a movie I already knew what I was getting into. So I guess maybe that's why I am disappointed. It's because
Yeah.
there was an opportunity for it to do something unique or whatever. But the most iconic part of this movie, of course, we've seen a bazillion times in different, horror commercials or packages or any of that stuff. But I don't know. I would not. Nothing about this would make me want to watch another movie dealing with these characters, unless I
Right.
guess it was Guy getting you know, getting
Come
it
up and
handed to him.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I am interested in reading the next Rosemary's
Yeah. Son of
Son of
Rosemary.
Rosemary.
Yeah. I've
Just
heard
to
that's
see where
not
they
as
go.
Yeah, I've heard that's not as good as this one, but I still want to read it and see what happens. What the thing is, I do know that it's funny because when I was watching this last night, I posted on Facebook that I was watching it, and I mentioned that it was my first time watching it. And apparently Angelique Jordana's wife told me I lost cool points because I should have seen it. And there were a lot of people on that post going, "This was like the
I
best
know.
movie ever."
I
Like
was. I'm like, oh no, this is the one that's going to get us run out of town
yeah,
because I had already watched half of it by that point, and I wasn't digging it at all. I fought to get through with it today.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
I
didn't
does
hate it. Um, it was
I would
like
have
watching the book because, as you said, it was pretty much, page by page of the book.
stopped watching it if we weren't doing this.
Yeah,
I would have just said, okay, I've seen the scene where she sees the baby. I don't need to see the rest of this. This is after I got to point, 60% into it, noticed it hasn't changed at all. I would have stopped, but I was like, well, let's finish it. I'm glad, I guess I'm glad we did. But out of everything we've done, I am disappointed with this one. And in fact, my suggestion would be that you go check out Polanski's other Devil Book movie. Which one was that? That came out with Johnny Depp. And now I'm drawing a blank of what it's called, but uh, The Ninth Gate.
oh, the Ninth Gate. Yeah,
I love that movie. I think they do a really good job there. It's the same kind of idea, but except for having the baby, it's the him trying to find the text. But I just like Johnny Depp's character, and I like the way that he directs that one.
yeah.
And it's
No,
probably because it's original material or it's not based
based on a
directly off
book.
of the book.
Yeah,
Uh, but
yeah,
I don't know. I just out of the three we've done so far, I think I guess Exorcist and then Amityville Horror and then Rosemary's. But
yeah,
I have a feeling that The Omen is gonna bump it down again
yeah,
when we get to that next.
yeah. I didn't realize the Omen book is so small.
Yeah, it's like a
'Cause
little pamphlet.
yeah,
So
so
hopefully we can get through it.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure
it's
it'll.
always nice when you grab one and it's not 7,000 pages.
I know.
So
Yeah,
now the one thing I'm wondering, and I don't know because I actually thought I had a copy and I don't. So now I'm thinking, well, maybe I haven't read it, and I thought I did. So I'm wondering what came first. Is this an adaptation of the movie, or is this going to be an original work that they base the movie upon? So that'll be interesting to see because if we're reading the adaptation, then we're going to get the exact same thing in
yeah,
reverse, which will be disappointing to have two in a row like that. But after that, I think we're going to do Sentinel, and I know that's an original, so
Yeah.
that'll be interesting to see. Actually, I'm really interested to see the Sentinel because after we get done with these other ones, it's going to be a hodgepodge, from what I understand, of all the things we've read up to this point. It'll be interesting to see what they cherry pick and what they, what we can say. Oh, well, that's from X, Y, Z. That'll
Yep.
be fun to kind of dissect. But I enjoyed the Rosemary book. I'm not really a fan of this movie. I don't, yeah, I couldn't imagine even suggesting that people watch this movie.
Yeah. I kind of like think it would have been kind of like similar to the Blair Witch phenomenon back when the movie was coming out. Like everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, gotta go see this movie."
Yeah.
And then I don't know anybody else, but personally, when I went to see the Blair Witch, I don't know if you remember, but they did like this um, months long thing on the internet
Mm-hmm. They're
where
one of the
you could
very
like,
first to do that.
yeah, and it was just like this big hype up, and everybody was like, "Oh, gotta buy my tickets." And then when I finally got to the movie and I watched it, I was like, it was all
I,
right.
I saw it opening night in a packed house, not one seat open, and it's one of the best movie experiences I've ever had
Really?
because the entire theater it reacted exactly how you're supposed to react during that film. Every time it was supposed to go crazy, everybody went crazy, and so when you get to the ending, everybody basically stood up and ran out of that theater. It
Yeah.
was like they thought Blair Witch was in the house. It was great. It was a fun experience. I saw it with like 3 or 4 friends, so we had, a row of people with us, and then, like I said, a packed house. It was a great experience.
Yeah. But I just
But
see
I get
Rosemary's
what you're
Baby
saying.
being like that,
Yeah, I
especially
could.
back in, what was it, 68 it came out?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I could see. And like I said, at the time it was starting, they were trying to move. I think theatrically, you were moving away from those more musicals and family fare, and you were getting these more realistic, where you could like feel the dirt of the city, and the
yeah.
people who were experiencing actual. I mean, it was probably like the first time that you had husband and wife discussing relationship stuff, because
Hmm.
they do that in this movie.
Yeah.
Um, they're talking about how they're not communicating and he's not listening, and they need to be together and doing all that, get on the same page. I
Hmm.
bet you that was one of the first times you saw that, because that didn't really happen in Hollywood and stuff. They almost never talked about real
Yeah.
problems and things of that nature. So that's interesting. As a movie, I thought, it's fine, but I just could not imagine um, saying that people needed to watch it.
Yeah. I mean,
Unfortunately, and I hate that because I know people do love it. But like you
yeah.
said, it probably has to do with when you see it and when you decide that it's, something important in your
Right.
lexicon. Um,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we saw it at this point, and it isn't necessary for anything. At least that's how I'm seeing it. I just
Yeah.
could not imagine suggesting as a top 10. Maybe I could say, hey, if you like psychological, you don't like violence, like we said with the book. If you're big into it, but you don't want gore and all that stuff, well, maybe, yeah. But I
Yeah.
just can't imagine somebody watching that and thinking that it's scary.
Yeah. But you got some butts and boobs.
Yeah, and at very weird times, and
Yeah.
almost felt like they were told, okay, listen, we need 30 seconds or 12 seconds or whatever. And he's like, okay, I'm just going to throw them up right here, get it
Yeah.
in there. Um, Yeah, it was just, but that didn't that also have the feel of a late '60s, early '70s film where it seemed like all they did was put in butts and boobs,
Yeah.
no matter whatever the thing was about. It didn't have to be a raunchy comedy or any of that stuff. Um, so it just had that feel. It had a dated feel and a dated look,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But I'm not interested in enough to go and see what the new one was like. When I finished it, I thought, I wonder how they handled the baby on that one they did recently. You know what I'm talking about? They did a
Yeah.
Rosemary's Baby recently. I wondered if they showed the baby in that one, but then
Yeah.
I decided
I
to
don't
go
know.
on with my life, and I just wandered off and started doing something else. But that might be something we should do. We should go and look that up and make a little side note if they handled the ending any different. But that one got completely shredded by everybody. So,
Yeah,
you know,
remakes are usually not good.
yeah, I agree with that. Although, did you see the remake of the Blair Witch Project? that well, it's not really a remake, but they came out with the Blair Witch. It's called The Blair Witch. It's in color, and it basically ignores Book of Shadows. It came out like in 2000, I want to say 17, but it may have been earlier than that. And it's basically the brother of the main girl going out to the woods to try and find her. And so it's basically Blair Witch all over again, just updated with actors and a script.
Yeah, no, I didn't see
And
that.
it's actually entertaining. I enjoyed it. I thought it was very entertaining, and it has some pretty cool, scary parts. And they did a good job of they totally just like I said, they ignored Book of Shadows, so you don't have to that weighing you down. But if you like Blair Witch, if you like those kind of things, I think the remake's decent. Although they probably would have called it whatever that nonsense is they're calling everything nowadays, where it's not a reboot or a remake, but it's like a
Reboot,
is
reboot
it reboot?
is
Yeah,
reboot. Yeah,
which is nonsense. It's just it's just another way of saying remake. So,
yeah.
um, but yeah, so if you have time and you want to check out Blair Witch, that you might enjoy a little bit more, I think the newer one is the one to go with.
I'll have to check that out. All right, now it is time for our not Stephen King book of the week. And this week the book is Unleashed by E.L. Jefferson.
Oh, that's an awesome cover.
Yeah, it is an awesome cover. So this book, um, when I was at New Jersey HorrorCon last year, there was a table and there was a gentleman and a woman, and they were selling some like I even forget what they were selling, but there was a rack with a couple of books in it. And I'm like, oh, interesting. You know me, right? I love a book. Um, so I just started talking with the guy, and it ended up he was the author of this book. There was another one, Twisted Justice, that I also bought. I haven't read it yet, even though I bought it a year ago. um, but this book here is about a man who's found on the side of the road. He's an accident, hit and run. He's taken to the ER, and the doctor in the ER notices something weird about him, um, and decides he wants to take him to his special hidden lab in the hospital. So yeah,
Always a good sign right there.
yeah. So he takes the this accident victim who's in a coma and takes him down to this secret lab, um, and he realizes that he heals himself, the victim, the patient. So he decides he wants to do some experiments. He takes the blood of this person and puts it into a cancer victim. He takes an organ, I forget which one, and gives it to like two different organs and gives it to two different patients because this guy will grow his organs back. I believe it was lungs and heart, and he grew his lungs and his heart back. As you can imagine, things do not go well with the recipients of this patient's organs and blood. Um, and you kind of don't realize, you're not really sure what's going on. Like, is this a vampire? Is this an alien? You don't really get the answer because there is a second book to this, a part two. It was just released in July. I haven't not read it yet. Um, so I'm hoping it gives you more answers to what the guy is, and how he can regenerate his body, um, and what happens with the other people. So yeah, it's a really interesting book. I love the cover. Um, Volume two, actually, the title is actually just Unleashed Volume Two, and it actually has the same cover, but with like right in this area, there's in the book there's these characters, the four elders, and you can see them like in this part of the book here. The author is not on Instagram or Facebook. I actually went to his website and emailed him
A
because I was
bold
like, I want,
choice.
huh?
That's
Yeah,
a bold choice.
yeah. Um, because I wanted to let him know this book only has like 3 reviews on Amazon. Um, and I just wanted to let him know that I really enjoyed this book, especially since I had met him in
Right.
person. Like I didn't expect that he would remember me or anything like that, but I just wanted to reach out. So I sent him the email, and that's when he told me that there was a sequel to it. So I will get the sequel as well as I have his Twisted Justice book. But yeah, I think it's worth a read. It's really creepy. It could be an alien or something. I'm not sure. But I still loved it. I thought it was a really great book.
Well, no,
Um,
this is exactly why we do this
yeah,
part of the the episodes, because I've never heard of this. I'm sure a lot
yeah,
of people haven't heard of this. This is an amazing find, and
yeah,
it sounds very interesting.
yeah,
So
it is. I mean,
hopefully,
it's not a very long book. So it's not like you have to dedicate a whole month to reading it. But yeah, definitely check it out. And then if you like it, get the sequel, Volume 2, Unleashed Volume 2. Um, yeah, so as far as the author not being on Instagram, I had asked him, are you on Instagram or Facebook? Because I wanted to be able to tag him in my review, especially on Instagram. And he's like, no, I'm really bad at um, social, at, technology. And he actually used to be a police officer. He's a former police officer. So he's a very interesting man to talk to um, when we were at New Jersey Horror Con.
I'm
So
curious what the other stuff on the table was now.
yeah, I can't remember. Um, I want to say candles, but I don't think that's it. It was horror merchandise of some sort, homemade horror merchandise. As I was talking to him, the woman that was with him was actually working on a piece. Um, so, and it's funny because New Jersey Horror Con, I think, was this month, because they do it in September. So he was probably there. But yeah, I can't remember what else was on the table. But just, of course, the books. It was just like this little spinny rack, and it had this book and his other book, and that was it.
Well,
You know,
sometimes those are the best ones, when you find them
yeah,
that way. At least expect it. I mean, you were at a book
yeah,
event, but I mean, still, to
yeah,
have the guy that was pushing something else have
yeah.
some cool
But
books.
Unleashed by E.L. Jefferson.
Yeah, I love that
Um,
cover.
yep, I read it um for when I dedicated reading books written by people of color. So yeah, but yeah, he was a really interesting man, and you can Google E.L. Jefferson and find his website. He has
So
some
he does
cool.
have a website.
He has a website, but he doesn't. He's not on social media like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or anything like that.
It's
Um,
cool.
yeah, so yeah, check it out. The link will be in the comments. I highly recommend it. It's a great read. Um, so yeah, give it a
All
read
right.
and make sure to leave a review because this book should have way more reviews than it does.
Every book should have way more than they
Yeah,
do, good or bad. So get
yep,
out there and review, even if it's just a sentence. I liked it, I hated it, whatever.
yep,
Go out there and help out your fellow indie fans, the ones that are putting out their heart and soul on the pages, putting it out. So
yep, yep, absolutely. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and we will catch you next time and see what's in the box.
see you next time.